So today we're just going to be reviewing more about complex and compound sentences. So if you get out your paper and your pencil, we can get started. The very beginning of the worksheet says, dependent clauses don't make sense on their own because they begin with something called a subordinating conjunction. This includes a list of subordinating conjunctions so you can identify where a dependent clause begins in a complex sentence. We've been looking at this a little bit in our past lessons, but this gives you just more detailed list of what exactly a subordinating conjunction is and how to identify a dependent clause from an independent clause. So our first sentence says, he was late because he hit rush hour traffic. And you should initially think, once you see the word because, that this is a subordinating conjunction, so this must be a dependent clause because he hit rush hour traffic. This cannot stand alone as a sentence because of the subordinating conjunction. So here you say he was late is an independent clause, so thus we have both an independent clause and a dependent clause, which means we have a complex sentence. So let's begin labeling it. For our first clause, in he was late, he is our subject pronoun. He's the one doing the action. And then was is going to be a verb linking. And late is going to be a predicate adjective. Remember, late is describing he equals late. And then in this way, the verb linking acts the same way as an equal sign. Because is of course going to be our subordinating conjunction. Then in the second clause, the one performing the action, the subject, is going to be he, subject pronoun, and the verb here is hit. What type of verb is this? Well, it's going to be a verb transitive because it is transferring action. What did he hit? That's what you have to ask yourself. He hit traffic, which is a direct object. Actually here, rush hour is going to be an adjective. This is going to be a modifier for traffic. It's telling what type of traffic or when the traffic was. It's rush hour traffic. So we're going to start diagramming this. And remember that the dependent clause always goes on the bottom, and the independent clause always goes on top. He is our subject pronoun, and then we're going to diagram this as normal. Our linking verb and our predicate adjective, pointing late back to he. He is our subject pronoun of the second clause, and we fill in the verb transitive, which is hit. And we're just going to diagram this as normal. Direct object is traffic, and then the modifier for traffic is going to be rush hour. What kind of traffic? Rush hour traffic. And we know that these two clauses are connected by a slanted dotted line and the subordinating conjunction going across it. Therefore, this is a complex sentence, and it is a declarative sentence. See, you guys, you're getting the hang of this. The complex sentences are not all that different. You're doing great. Let's start another one. Our second sentence says, I went to the store while the sun was out. So our first clue here is we have a subordinating conjunction, while. So that should indicate to you that there's a dependent clause somewhere in here. So let's find it. So our independent clause is going to be I went to the store. We know that can stand by itself as its own simple sentence. While the sun was out is going to be our dependent clause. This clause is dependent on the rest of the sentence to make sense. It cannot stand alone. So because we have an independent clause and a dependent clause, we know that this is going to be a complex sentence. So let's start by labeling the first clause. I went to the store. The subject of this sentence is I, doing the action, subject pronoun. The action here is went, so that's our verb. There's no action technically being transferred here. I went to the store is going to be a prepositional phrase. So when you see a preposition like to, around, across, you should automatically get the cue that this is a prepositional phrase, that there's a preposition and an object of the preposition. And then the is going to be an article adjective. Now we know that while is our subordinating conjunction. And then here the subject performing the action is going to be son, which is a subject noun. Now, was is going to be a linking verb. So this is because we can see son is out. When you see a verb such as was or is, it's almost always going to be a linking verb, unless it's followed by like an ing verb, like was helping. But if it says the sun was out, it's showing what the sun was, or, she is teacher. It's showing what she is, and so thus it's a verb linking followed by a predicate adjective or predicate noun. So sun was out. Out is an adjective, a predicate adjective, and the is going to be an article adjective. So we remember that our dependent clause is the clause that goes on the bottom, while the independent clause goes on top. So subject pronoun is I, and the verb intransitive is going to be went. To the store is our prepositional phrase. Next, son is the subject of our second clause, and our verb is going to be was, and our predicate adjective is going to be out. Out points back to son, and it's connected by a slanted dotted line. So of course this is going to be a complex sentence, and it is a declarative sentence. Our next sentence says, Anne cleaned the house. So this one's going to be a lot simpler than our past couple sentences. This is because it is a simple sentence. But it's always helpful to review this type of sentence. We're going to start with the subject. The subject of the sentence is going to be Anne. This is an imperative sentence, meaning it's a command sentence. And as you remember from the last unit, sometimes you'll get an imperative sentence that just says, for example, clean the house. And that's when there's an understood you as the subject. However, this names the subject, Anne. So that's the subject noun here. Clean is going to be our verb transitive, because it's directing action onto house, which is our direct object. And the is going to be an article adjective. So you just diagram an imperative sentence as you would another sentence. Just like this. Our next sentence says, I waited by the park and I went to the store. So we can tell that this is going to be a sentence with multiple different clauses, so we're going to try to figure out what type. I waited by the park is going to be an independent clause. This can stand alone. And I went to the store this is also going to be an independent clause. It's put together by a coordinating conjunction. So we know that this isn't going to be a complex sentence, but it's going to be a compound sentence. So let's start by labeling it. I is our subject pronoun. Waited is our action here, so that's going to be our verb, and it's an intransitive verb. And we can see that by, we already know that's going to be a preposition, so this is going to be a prepositional phrase, which makes park our object of the preposition. The is going to be an article adjective, and is our coordinating conjunction. And here in the second clause, we have subject pronoun is I. I is the subject here, doing the action. The action that's happening is went. So we know that's going to be a verb. It's going to be a verb intransitive. And then again, we have a prepositional phrase marked by the preposition, which is to, and our object of the preposition, which is store. Then the is going to be an article adjective. So this is going to be a compound sentence, so we're going to diagram it. As we do, you guys are professionals at diagramming compound sentences. You've had so much practice. Waited is going to be our verb intransitive. By the park. So that's our first independent clause. And our second says, I went to the store. So there's our prepositional phrase. The modifies store, which store, the store. And it's connected as we typically connect compound sentences, just like this. So we know that this is a compound sentence, and it's a declarative sentence. Good job, guys. Keep up the good work and continue practicing as much as you can.